local meat work. There you go. And that's a really important approach to our work. And then we layer on access to resources and connections and try to really ease the way for farmers to be able to get what they need to get from all the different really wonderful partners that we have in this region that are supporting farms in lots of different ways. We have a couple strategic areas that we focus on because we think they're important parts of the food system in the Berkshire-Taconic region to uplift. One you're hearing about today is our local meat work. We also have a market match fund where we fundraise for 10 Berkshire area farmers markets to provide the one-to-one SNAP match at farmers markets up to $30. Very important, I think, in this day and age to really be supporting our low-income community, supporting farmers. It's a huge source of economic development to be able to help them earn more at the farmers markets as well as support the farmers markets and being able to provide these matches. And then the third area is our climate work, where we work on the climate change issues facing our farmers. So risk mitigation, adaptation, working with farmers to help them adapt to all this unpredictable weather that we all know we've been facing, from droughts to floods and more. So, we really wanted to bring everyone together to be able to talk about this body of work for a couple key reasons. One is we really feel like it's important to share the learnings, and when BAV kicked off this work a number of years ago, we're able to learn from others who had begun this work on local meat processing. I'm looking right at Margaret Christie at CISA for the great report that she wrote that helped inform our work, and I think it's really important. We didn't want this body of work to sit on a shelf and just become static. It was always meant to be actionable and impactful. And I think it's important that we continue to build the community brain trust. We all want to be working towards helping our livestock farmers, helping with local meat processing, and this is all of us coming together to continue to share these learnings. And then last but not least, this is all done through the lens of improving our food system for all. So having said all of that, I'm now going to pass it over and welcome Senator Paul Mark to give a few remarks, and we're really thankful that you're here. Thanks.
Thanks. Well, thanks everybody for being here. Thank you to Rebecca and Jake for involving us in the legislature in this report, and thank you to everybody at One Berkshires for the work you do as part of our blueprint to try to find strategic partnerships in order to, most benefit the region. So when myself and Tricia and my legislative colleagues, past, present, and future, go down to Boston, we are often confronted with how do we get as much of the total pie as possible and bring it back to the Berkshires. And then when we're trying to steer these resources, how do we get the biggest bang for our buck? How do we find programs that we can help support that are going to pay significant dividends and help this region in many ways? And I think the earmark that was secured for this study and the research that we're about to see is one of those great places where we're talking about economic growth, we're talking about supporting farmers, we're talking about protecting the environment, not just in mitigation, but anything we do to protect farmers also helps keep our environment sustainable and renewable and good and excellent for the future, which is so important to us. And I remember it was probably 12 years ago now that a group of farmers from South County came to me and said to me, "How can you help us move the slaughterhouse bill?" And I said, well, the first thing you can do is stop saying the slaughterhouse bill because nobody's going to pass that. And so it's really good to instead be focused on this idea of meat processing, on the idea of value-added farming, of making the products that we're able to work with here and promote here. Everything that we can do that helps one of our local farmers add to the value that they are able to obtain is going to help keep jobs, land, families, and resources here in the Berkshires. So I look forward to hearing the report and watching as much of the slideshow as I can before I sneak out early. And I thank you for your great work and thank you for the opportunity to join you and speak today. Is that brief?
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Mark. My name is Jake Levin, and I am the local meat processing support program manager for Berkshire Agricultural Ventures. We're here today to talk about the work we've done on local meat processing over the last few years, and in particular the work we've done on expanding value-added meat processing with our partners at Foodworks Group, who will be presenting a little bit later. Really excited to have you all here, both in the room and virtually with us. And yeah, let's get into it. So I want to start by talking a little bit about the background of how we got to be focusing on expanding local meat, value-added meat processing. So why local meat in the first place? First of all, nearly half of the farmers in our region are livestock farmers. And they play multiple critical roles in our region. One of them being that they are the ones who are keeping this landscape open, which has come to define this region and make it an important economic hubs and destination. Another good reason is study after study has shown that demand for local meat significantly exceeds supply. On top of that, any work we do to support any part of the local food system improves the overall system and benefits all farmers and consumers in our region. And we saw this as a critical economic development opportunity. And there's a larger reason as well, which is that nearly 85% of meat processing facilities in this country are controlled by just 4 companies, making it really hard for small meat processors and small livestock farmers to get a footing and to get ahead. I think COVID really brought this to light. So with that in mind, in 2020, Berkshire Agricultural Ventures commissioned a study with Good Roots, formerly known as Kitchen Table Consultants, to do a landscape analysis and needs assessment of the region and incorporating some of the important work that had already been done, including the work that Margaret had done with CISA, some work that had been done in the Hudson Valley, some work that Berkshire Grown had done. The key findings, which are probably somewhat familiar to some of you in this room: processing bottlenecks limit number of animals that can be processed, low processing quality is limiting product value, which is changing and hurting profitability and discouraging investment in folks' herds and livestock operations. They suggested that we provide in-depth technical assistance to existing processors, and by in-depth, we're talking about somewhere between a year and a half of engagement on technical assistance. That we create a revolving loan fund for meat processors. That we invest in critical infrastructure, things like cold storage, processing facilities, transportation, distribution, food hubs, and that we explore regional marketing and branding for livestock producers. Based on those recommendations, we applied to a regional food systems partnership grant. Many of our partners are in this room today. Berkshire Grown, One Berkshire, our host, Berkshire Planning Regional Commission. And we had a couple goals: enhance processing capacity, support livestock farmers, and create more availability of local meat for our consumers. We've had a lot, over the last almost 4 years now, we've had a lot of success, and I just want to briefly talk about some of those successes before we really zero in on value-added meat. We've provided long-term, in-depth technical assistance. Again, we're talking about anywhere from a year to 18 months. Some of those engagements have been 2 or 3 years now. And financial support in the way of low-interest loans and grant writing support. Besides those 5 processors that we've worked in-depth with over the last 3+ years, we've provided targeted assistance to another 17 processors throughout the region. And that's not just our 4-county service area. We're really talking about a broader region here throughout Massachusetts, southern Vermont, into western New York, eastern New York, and central New York, and throughout Connecticut. We've supported processors in securing over $5 million in federal and state funding. That's $5 million that have gone directly to meat processors in our region. And so far, with my colleague Shannon Smith, we've deployed $400,000 in low-interest loans to date, and we have another $800,000 we're planning on deploying in low-interest loans in the next year. We've also done a lot of work on value chain coordination and infrastructure development. With our partners from Berkshire Grown, we convened a 10-member livestock working group that met every other month for 3 years. We have helped 4 facilities in the region gain their USDA inspection. That's an increase of 40% for the region, pretty significant. And we commissioned a study on USDA inspected value-added expansion, what we're here to talk about today. A few more things we've done in the past 3.5 years that I wanted to mention. We developed an online livestock farmers resource guide. This is a directory for livestock farmers, whether they're looking for a source of feed or hay, looking for a meat processor in the region, a vet, a place to get fencing equipment. It's all listed here. Afterwards, if anybody wants to fool around on my computer and play around with the guide, welcome to. We also developed the basic guide to meat literacy and understanding state and federal meat processing regulations primer. We have copies over there on the table to look at. Very proud of those 2 resources. We also launched the Meetup, which is both a listserv and a newsletter with over 200 active members on it. And over the last 3.5 years, we have hosted and organized 10 workshops and trainings for livestock farmers and meat processors. We also developed in partnership with Agri-Foraging Food Safety a free HACCP hotline. That's a free meat food safety hotline. That was grant funded, and the funding for that ended this spring. So that is no longer active, but it was a really wonderful resource. We had over 200 calls in the course of 18 months. And we developed with our partners at Good Roots a cost of production calculator and training video for livestock farmers. So let's talk about value-added products and value-added meat. What is value-added products and why did we focus on that? Value-added products are products that go through a process to increase their value, pretty straightforward. In agriculture, think about tomatoes becoming tomato sauce or salsa. For meat, we're really talking about things that go through usually go through a physical transformation. Think about sausages, broth, rendered lard, pet treats, etc. In this work, we were particularly focused on the products that livestock farmers have reported back to us they have a really hard time to market. Those are things like ground meat and trim, organs and odd bits like feet, skin, fat, and bones. These are products that tend to build up in farmers' cold storage and don't really move, adding to the sense that we have a need for more cold storage. It's what my partner and colleague, Matt LaRue, who's a livestock working group member, he's at Cornell Cooperative Extension, he calls it the cold storage fallacy. It's the idea that we need cold storage when actually we need to move the products that are building up in cold storage. These are products that in their raw state, like a heart or a liver, are hard to sell to people. But when they are turned into a pet treat, when bones are turned into bone broth, they're suddenly an extremely desirable product for consumers and have a decent margin for farmers. So it's a win-win for everybody. But we lack the capacity to have those products. We don't have the infrastructure, or we didn't have the infrastructure to make those products, at least under USDA. So, this all started, it was part of the original Good Roots study. This was a sort of a medium-term focus that they listed in their report of focusing on expanding value-added production in cold storage. On top of that, once we convened the livestock working group, it was a topic that rose to the top as a critical need and opportunity for farmers. We kept, in every conversation, kept circling back to this. So thanks to former Senator Adam Hines, we secured an earmark from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to focus on expanding capacity for value-added production and cold storage. Thanks to that funding, we were able to partner with FoodWorks Group to conduct a landscape analysis, needs assessment, and feasibility study on this expansion and to make recommendations on how we could implement that and next steps we could take, which is what we'll be focusing on for the rest of today. With that said, I want to introduce my friend, colleague, and partner on all this work, Grace Liao from FoodWorks Group, who is zooming in from San Francisco, I believe.
Hi, thanks, Jake. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. My name is Grace, as Jake introduced, and I'm joined by my colleague and the founder of FoodWorks Group, Wendy Stewart, as well, who's on Zoom. FoodWorks Group is a women-run advisory firm that supports projects and progress across the local and regional food system. And as Jake mentioned, we were really lucky and grateful to partner with BAV for this multi-year project, which ran from mid-2023 through early 2025. While we can't dig into everything that the work uncovered, we're really excited to be here today and share the high-level takeaways and highlights of this work with you all today. So for this project, we worked with BAV and its network of partners and stakeholders, building on existing research to date in the region to help answer this question of the demand for value-added processing services, and then also addressing the need. What's the best way to increase that access if there is demand? So for this work, we conducted a detailed landscape analysis and feasibility study where we connected directly with over 100 stakeholders, including farmers, processors, supply chain players, and local experts through in-person and virtual interviews, a survey directly to farmers, and a site visit to the region, and where we visited operators as well. This work also resulted in FoodWorks Group and our partner FoodOps providing direct business technical assistance to 2 existing operators in the region, which we'll detail a bit more later in the presentation. And I just want to talk about the region that our work looked at before we dive into the findings. As you'll see on this map shown on the slide, our work looked at a broad region beyond just the Berkshires. We really wanted to take a multi-state approach to this work, building on some of the reasons Jake has already mentioned today, knowing that USD services, really often people are traveling across state lines to access these services, and farmers travel long distances to access services. So our work looked at Massachusetts, New York, Connecticut, and Southern Vermont, knowing that realistically to understand the demand and throughput for potential services, we would be benefited by looking at this larger region where farmers are often traveling from to visit. And as you see here, the work also resulted in this map, which is actually a live tool that users like yourself could utilize and visualizes all the processors in the region. So on this tool, a user, maybe a farmer, wants to turn some product into sausage. They could look up pork. Let's say they want to make pork sausage, look up that and see what processors near their farm are able to offer those services. So this tool continues to exist and hopefully can be useful to some folks in the room as well. Next slide, please. So to highlight what we heard from our research, some of the high-level findings, first of all, this work really validated and added context to the themes that BAV has heard through their work to date. Some of the things that rose to the top, farmers really need clear pathways to turn those underused cuts into marketable products that customers want. Available access to accessible options for value-added processing services. We heard from many farmers, they might take their animals to get slaughtered at one facility and then have to go to multiple other facilities to get those processing services that they're interested in. So making this more accessible and less time-consuming and cost-intensive for farmers. We also heard, a main barrier is even finding those production services for certain value-added products. They may be able to find cut and wrap services, smoking services in the region, but not be able to find services for some of those more niche products like bone broth. In terms of key bottlenecks, we also heard farmers consistently struggle with long travel times to access their salmon processing services. There's also limited slots at facilities where farmers are maybe signing up months or a year in advance for a slot for an animal. Travel times can also be long and expensive. And perhaps most importantly, there's significant lost revenue when these parts of the animal like bones, fat, and trim build up in cold storage and don't have good pathways to market. As Jake has mentioned, these parts could be turned into consumer-friendly products that keep more value local. Next slide, please. So through our work, we surveyed farmers, as I mentioned, and the top 5 products that we found in demand by farmers, what they wanted to produce were jerky and meat sticks, meatballs, meat pies, bone broth, and a variety of sausages. And just to provide a little bit more detail at one of the questions that we asked for this, we asked farmers, which of these value-added production services would you utilize if a new facility offered them in close proximity to you, less than 100 miles? When asked that question, you can see in this question and these responses, there was quite a wide variety of responses that farmers shared, a diversity of products that they're interested in producing. In addition to those top 5 products that farmers shared, we also saw animal fats, pet food and treats, dumplings, hot dogs and bacon, and other products. And these all sort of highlight a theme that we heard throughout our work, both from farmers, consumers, and sales channels like a local grocery store or distributor. Potential customers were really interested in convenient, sometimes ready-to-eat products that could make these things like bones, trim more accessible and easy to eat for them, make it easy to enjoy that delicious local meat that you all produce. So we saw really a theme of this convenient and ready-to-eat product like meatballs and sausages come through our work. And looking at, the key recommendation that came out of our work, how do we grow these services and actually make this a reality for the region? The thing we heard most throughout our work was that people were really interested in a decentralized expansion of services. What does that look like? Really, it's building capacity with existing facility operators who have expressed interest in expanding their value-added processing services. It's far more effective to invest in existing operators who have a proven track record and those existing systems than to build a brand new facility. This also reduces risk and creates less competition in the region and spreads access regionally, making sure that there are multiple places where you could get bone broth produced rather than traveling across many states to get those services if only one facility offered them. And it's more efficient and more practical, building on what's already working with the work that BAV has done to support a variety of producers and facility operators in the region. Next slide. So to look a little bit more closely at some of those specific expansion opportunities, our work found 5 primary operators who were ready at the time of our research and interested to expand their processing services and actually establish expanded capacity to produce some of the products we've talked about today. And those facilities were Adams Farm, Reed Farm, Stillman Quality Meats, Letterbox Farm, and Plymouth Meats. Through this project, BAV and FoodWorks Group actually partnered to provide 2 of these operators, Reed Farm and Letterbox Farm, with business technical assistance to actually look at the investment needed to increase those value-added processing services and scale their revenue potential and throughput. And BAV continues to support those 2 operators and others in securing funding for implementation of these services and helping them understand how to make this a reality. Next slide. So to look at some of the next steps, in addition to actually establishing that increased processing services, there are some complementary services and ideas that BAV is thinking about and that our work uncovered. Some of those include the key questions and next steps like exploring if institutional buyers like colleges and hospitals could become anchor customers and be a site in the region to actually sell and provide these foods to people in the region. Also understanding how a shared brand could help aggregate and market these products on a regional level, knowing that one farmer may not have enough bones in their freezer or from their harvest that year to produce a large run of bone broth, but maybe 5 of those farmers could get together and have a shared brand of bone broth. Also thinking about logistics, highlighting a transportation or distribution hub to help farmers reach bigger markets like New York City. And then finally ensuring, with that issue of cold storage, that cold storage expands and increases as new capacity for production grows in the region. And this work really lays the foundation for all these next steps, which I know BAV has already started to tackle after we concluded this work earlier this year. Next slide. And finally, I just want to share some of the success stories that have come out of this work. So to start, I want to highlight Charcuterie, which is a local and artisanal charcuterie company based in the Hudson Valley that produces products in their own USDA inspected facility, where they produce for charcuterie, their own brand, and they also provide services for other farmers in the region. Funded by BAV's programs, FoodWorks Group was able to work with Charcuterie to provide some financial and business planning services and really help them look at those different parts of their business model. And we helped them understand that expanding their USDA co-packing services to the region could actually make their own business more viable. So they're working on grant writing and implementing these services to provide increased fresh sausages, dry cured sausages, and smoked bacon services to the region. We also worked with Letterbox Farm through our study for business planning and financial modeling to help them understand how to expand production of their meatballs and meat pies in an on-farm commercial kitchen. And I know BAV has also been working with them on lending and supporting their program where they coordinate USDA co-packing of beef, pork, and chicken broth for their farm and others in the region as they think about expanding all of those services. And I want to pass it to Kat with Reed Farm to share a bit more about her experience.
That came suddenly. I'm listening to Reed. Hello, everyone. I'm Kat Chang of Reed Farm in Sunderland, which I co-own and co-operate with my husband, Peter. As you've sort of seen, we're a poultry farm, so we raise our own chicken and process them. It's a state-inspected facility currently, and we sell mostly wholesale. More importantly, perhaps, we also offer processing services to other farms for sale. So being state licensed, it means that they can get their poultry processed by us and they can sell it within Massachusetts. You can imagine that that's a little bit of a problem for the folks near the borders where maybe there's a farmer's market in the next town over, but it's across state lines, so they cannot sell that poultry there. So becoming USDA, which we're planning for January and February, we will be the only USDA poultry processing facility in the state, and that will expand those markets for them. With BAV, we've also worked very intensely on the value added, which you've heard a lot about today. For us, it's important to make use of the whole animal that respects that animal's life that they've given to nourish us by using the entire animal. And it creates more products for farmers to sell. And then that increased value also is important for that bottom line for farmers. What else do we have here? I have a bunch of notes. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. So basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is that BAV's help has been monumental for us. When I used to raise just livestock, I used to think, wow, there are no processors around. Why is that? And now on the other side of things, I can tell you it is very difficult to make it work. So I am stuck in the day-to-day, but it is a widespread issue. It's a big bottleneck for our state and our surrounding states across the Northeast. And without folks who are dedicated to working on it as a big picture issue, then that's not going to help us expand the way we have been able to in the past few years. We only opened in 2019 was like our soft opening. 2020 is when we really got rolling. And in that time, as you can imagine, with the pandemic and then people realizing how important this local infrastructure is for our food system, with BAV's help and with CISA's help, we've secured a lot of federal and state grant funding, which has basically rocket shipped us. So we've grown incredibly, and it's been very tiring and difficult, but we couldn't do it without organizations like BAV, who are not only connecting us with technical assistance, financial assistance, grant writing, not just the writing and the editing, but the brainstorming of how do our needs fit what this grant is offering with funds. But also just general support and cheerleading. It's hard work. There's not many of us, so not everyone understands all the difficulties, all the elements that we're balancing. And so to have folks who are like, you are doing important work, kind of cheerleading us in the background really helps to keep us going and keep in mind that big picture of the important role we're playing, because not only can folks raise their birds or livestock for sale, and then we're offering that processing service, but we're also giving them feedback that they can't get without looking inside the animal. Sometimes there are issues that they're not aware of because you don't see it from the outside. And I think that might be the gist of everything. And I'm happy to talk to anyone who may have any questions. And if you want to talk to me, I'll stick around for a little bit. And I'm also very reachable by email as well. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Grace. I also wanted to highlight the work we've done with Stillman Quality Meats, another sort of central mass processor. Kate Stillman came to us a year and a half or 2 years ago, much like Reed, interested in going under USDA grant of inspection in order to be able to expand their wholesale capacity, but also so that they could start producing product for other farmers in the area. Stillman Quality Meats has developed quite a reputation, especially in Eastern Mass and the Boston area, for the incredible value-added products they make, like the various sausages, meatballs, which is my favorite product that they make, and the various meat pies. Kate saw that there was a need for that throughout the area, heard that we were offering this kind of support, and came to us. We've been working with her closely in the last couple of years, first with technical assistance to get her grant of inspection from the USDA and to write the appropriate food safety plans that go with that, as well as facility design. Figuring out how to design a value-added production facility under USDA inspection is very tricky, and so we got some expert guidance for Kate. On top of that, we hired Julia Shanks to work with her to do some business planning and financial modeling, especially around the co-packing. It's one thing to make your own product for yourself. It's another thing to start making that product for other people. Again, whole new systems that she had to develop and financials that she had to consider. We've also supported her with grant writing. And in fact, this report that FoodWorks Group wrote for us has become instrumental, as Kat mentioned, for grant writing and to get grants. So Kate incorporated a lot of these findings into several grants that are pending, but we're very excited to be able to announce those results. She has, much like Food Security Infrastructure Grant has been critical to Reed Farm, it's also been critical to Stillman Quality Meats. I cannot emphasize enough to this room how important the Food Security Infrastructure Grant has been to not just our farmers, but to the middle value chain entities. And none of this work would really be possible without those funds. And we wouldn't be where we are right now without those funds. So Kate is projected to see $1.5 million in annual sales within 3 to 4 years. That's pretty significant. I was going to play a video from one of our farmers, Anna Houston, but we couldn't figure out how to get the sound to play. It's unfortunate because you can hear her adorable 2-year-old son in the background playing. But Anna talked about the process for being a livestock working group and the importance of being part of that group, and also the importance of food security infrastructure grants, and why value-added production is so important to her as a farmer, as a livestock farmer. They very much see prepared meals as key to the growth of their business. They've already started working with Leatherbox Farm, mentioned earlier, in producing bone broth that has been huge for them in terms of mitigating their waste and creating a new revenue stream. But they really see from what they want, from what their consumers want, that is sort of the future of their business, having chicken pot pies, chicken sausages, lambs, stews, et cetera, available to their consumers. I know I can speak as a father of 2 young children who loves good food. Like, I want more of that myself. I didn't really do Anna justice, but if you want to watch the video afterwards, one-on-one on my computer, you're welcome to. And now it's going to try to play it. Okay. Next steps. So we've covered the main body of the research that was done, and now I want to talk and some of the immediate sort of implementation outcomes of that, the work we've done with Reed Farm and with Silman Quality Meats, Letterbox, Charcuterie, et cetera. But I want to talk about what the next steps are for us. Obviously, there's continued need for value chain support in general for processors, farmers, and middle of the value chain operators. We plan on continuing to deploy low-cost loans to farmers and mid-value chain entities, as you heard us talk about. Shannon and I are planning on deploying another $800,000 this year to meet processors. We are continuing to provide technical assistance and grant writing support. We've got several very exciting grant writing projects going on right now with some of our partners. And as you may have picked up from my emphasis on food security infrastructure grant, we continue to advocate for state and federal funding to keep flowing. That has been so critical to all these operators, both the state funds and the federal funds. I think it's hard for us to rely right now on federal funds, so what we can get from state is really important. We see a future opportunity in exploring a shared brand and marketing project with partners. We have not yet really focused on that, but we've seen over and over again why that is important and a critical need. That probably involves convening a cohort of livestock farmers interested in shared branding, developing what that brand would look like in that marketing plan, and then working with the distributors to get that product out there. Where we're really focused right now, which I find to be a really exciting opportunity, is the institutional sales. We have already started on that work a little bit. We have a lot more to do. There's a lot more opportunities there. But we've started to identify what the critical infrastructure needs are, where there are opportunities, and what we can do to develop those. Now we just need the funding to actually do that development. We plan on deploying loans and grant writing support for those farmers and mid-value chain entities. Part of that will be me continuing to provide value chain coordination, working with the institutions, the farmers, and the processors, distributors, et cetera. We foresee that there's going to be continued need for food safety trainings, especially when we're talking about working with K through 12 schools and colleges and other public institutions. And this is a space where policy can really be impactful. Already there are several bills in front of the Mass state legislation, including one drafted by our own Representative Lee Davis that we were involved in informing. That's H.4 106. That's currently in front of the Mass Joint Committee for Agriculture and Fisheries. There is also the Farm to School bill, which co-sponsored by Senator Comerford. That is coming out of Committee in Education. And then there is Senator Joe Comerford's Farm Omnibus bill. All of these touch on farm to institution and funding for this work. It's really exciting opportunities. Massachusetts lags a little bit behind some of our neighboring states, including New York, Connecticut, and Vermont. And policy can be really effective on this front. We're also continuing to develop our farm to institution partner network. We have one of our partners in the room right now from Cornell Extension. We're also working closely with Mass Farm to School, Farm to Institution New England, and other important organizations, Yukon Extension, et cetera. I want to make a couple acknowledgements. I want to thank Senator Paul Mark and former Senator Adam Hines for stewarding this earmark. Obviously, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, especially the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources, has been a critical partner in all of this work and is managing the funds for us. FoodWorks Group, Livestock Working Group, and our local farmers, processors, and partners, especially One Berkshire, our host today, who has been so fantastic in supporting us throughout this whole process. I want to open up for questions, but before we open it up for questions, our own Commissioner of Agriculture, Ashley Randall, has a few remarks she's going to make, and then we'll open it up for any questions for me, Kat, or anybody else. Commissioner?
Well, good morning, all. It's great to see you. Sorry that I can't join you in person, but really appreciate all of the updates. And again, going back to a word that's been used a lot this morning, the partnership, and the partnership that's needed in order to have more processing capacity across the state, particularly in the Berkshires, as we've talked about this morning. I know when I talk to livestock farmers across the state, and coming from a dairy background myself and recognizing what the agricultural economy looks like right now and record beef prices that we're seeing over the last several months, but a major barrier to be able to really find that value is the value added processing side. And it was great to hear both about the work towards USDA certification from CAT and Stillman's. I actually had the opportunity to visit the Canton Farmers Market yesterday and see Stillman's there and purchase some of the meatballs, as you said, Jake, one of your favorite items. But I do think to be able to create more of those connections and that intentionality around the investment in processing and the value added piece is really critical. And hearing from Senator Mark and knowing that there's the legislative appetite to be able to continue to move this forward, as well as the regional partnerships and the regional support that's needed to be able to move this effort forward. I think the report really speaks volumes by the numbers and by the demand. And now it's putting those pieces into place to be able to continue to elevate those findings and the conversation that we've had today to be able to move this forward for the benefit of not only our livestock producers, but also for consumers around the food access piece. So I greatly appreciate the work of BAV. I think this report was very well done, and the partnership in funding this report and being able to get it out there. Certainly, it does take everyone in this effort to move it forward now, so it doesn't sit on a shelf, as Rebecca said, and we want to continue to be able to uplift those findings to move forward for the benefit of our consumers and our farmers. So again, it's great to see you all in the room. I can see some familiar faces, and thank you to everyone as well online that attended and is interested in this topic.